Warning, this video and the Nemesis saga as a whole is not at all intended for kids, as it contains several topics not suitable for young children. Also, massive spoiler warning for the entire Nemesis saga, as well as several other kaiju properties. You have been warned. Hubris. Exaggerated pride or self-confidence. This is the definition of hubris according to the Merriam-Webster dictionary. But there is one phrase I would like to add to it, that being that ultimately leads to one's downfall. Hubris is a phrase as old as the Greek myths it comes from, and serves as a major source of flaw for the characters within those stories. The hubris of Bellerophon for thinking he could join Olympus because he has the Pegasus. The hubris of Theseus and Pirithous for believing they could just steal the wife of Hades. The hubris of Kronos for believing he could delay the inevitable. The hubris of Arachne for believing she could call the bluff of the goddess Athena. Hubris has always been a major player amongst those myths and stays that way even now amongst popular culture. And no other piece of fiction demonstrates it better than the kaiju. Since their inception, giant monsters have always served as raw examples of mankind's consistent underestimation of hubris. The hubris of Carl Denham for believing he could exploit the greatest of apes, only for said greatest of apes to fall at the hands of a fighter plane. The hubris of mankind for creating the nuke, which led to the creation of Godzilla, and later the oxygen destroyer, which led to the creation of Destroya. The hubris of the Atlanteans for thinking they could play God, which led to the creation of the Gyaos and the destruction of their empire. The hubris of Walter Simmons for thinking he could beat the King of Monsters, only for his creation to smite him down. Hubris serves as the greatest metaphor from the giant monster, as they have often been the cause of our destruction, the beings to finally topple us and bring us to our knees. And no other series demonstrates this better than that of Jeremy Robinson's Nemesis saga. This is Maigo's vengeance. Project Nemesis. Boston, Massachusetts. A young girl, Maigo Tilly, lies dead on the floor. Her body is numb and bloody, and her mother's in a similar state. Her father, Alexander Tilly, gets up and hides the weapon he used, covering up his involvement and staging the incident as a... well, that word can't be used here. 5 years later, a war rages as the United States military, with the help of Department Homeland Security Fusion Center Paranormal, engages in combat with a giant monster, who had first appeared less than a week earlier. The beast, dubbed Nemesis, lumbers as the director of DHS FCP, John Hudson, alongside his co-worker Ashley Collins and former enemy Katsu Endo, engage in combat with the mutated General Lance Gordon, as Alexander Tilly, who has been what could only be described as kidnapped, is watching, cowering, and awaiting any moment to escape. And it isn't long until he's given that opportunity. Gordon is flung from the roof and lands upon the cement, and as Nemesis approaches closer and closer, Alexander Tilly begins to fear for his life. Hudson at first grabs him and leads him towards a bright red helicopter. That is until he learns that the man is Alexander Tilly. Hudson turns to him and begins interrogating him. Following a quick confession, Hudson closes the door of the helicopter as it flies away and drags Alexander to the edge of the building, overlooking the carnage in front and the monster at the center. Hudson pushes on as, after a short bit of protest, Alexander confesses, claiming that his wife was a cheater and that Maigo was a witness he couldn't have. Hudson takes a moment as he processes the situation. He looks back up to Nemesis and then back at Alexander and says, "I had a girlfriend who cheated on me. I'm pretty sure I loved her too. She gave a Hummer to a guy named Sven, if you can believe it. I didn't kill anyone, didn't even cross my mind. I did keep the school suit, but she never asked for it back either." Alexander looks at him in confusion as Hudson continues. "Here is a simple fact. All of this is because of you. The thousands of people who've died over the last few days are because of you. And even though I believe in the laws of this country, and the system that puts people like you in jail," he points to Nemesis, "she does not." Hudson then rears up, glares at the beast, and begins to shout, "Nemesis!" Alexander cowers in fear, but the monster doesn't respond to the name. Hudson tries again. "Nemesis!" Again, no response. Hudson then pauses, remembering something, the person that Nemesis once was. He rears up again, and louder this time, shouts the creature's real name. Maigo! Alexander looks up as the creature approaches them, having listened to the call, and his fear escalates. Hudson looks at him with a disappointed look on his face and says, "Your daughter has come home." Nemesis then rears higher, her black-coated skin shedding to reveal a white body, and large wings spread out, blotting the horizon from view. Alexander stays petrified, the only noises coming from him being whimpers and light sobs like that of a scared dog begging for mercy. Mercy that he will never receive. Hudson makes a run for it as Nemesis's wings begin to shake. The sun, peering right behind Nemesis's body, begins to grow brighter as the scales that make up her wings begin to shake. Alexander's life flashes before his eyes as every last word that Hudson spoke rings in his head. And in a last-ditch effort, he tries to plead. In vain. A blast of reflected sunlight launches from Nemesis's wings, and, in less than a second, Alexander Tilly, as well as the building that he was standing on, is reduced to ash. This is Hubris. Throughout the last part of the book, we see how Alexander Tilly had little regret for his actions, almost having forgotten about them up to that point. We see exactly how he tried and succeeded to use his positions of power to get what he wanted. He was the one responsible for the death of his wife and child, and he chooses to ignore it, thinking he is above judgment. He tries to stand up to Gordon during the kidnapping and Hudson during the execution, using his position of power to put himself above them in an attempt to avoid his judgment. That is until judgment finds him. Humans as a species are a lot of things. Intelligent, creative, social, powerful. But there's one thing about us that, here, is highlighted more than ever. We are arrogant. We believe ourselves above others, and it is when we find a lack of care in that regard that we see ourselves as something greater. Something that can get away with everything. But here's the cold hard truth. We are not gods. From our beginning, we have never been above nature. Humanity as a species has, yes, harnessed it, but that harnessing in more ways than one has led to some sort of catastrophic failure, whether it be personal, like a person dying due to an unknown/mistreated illness, to something more devastating, like the failed attempts at controlling a wildfire. All of it has led to catastrophic issues that still plague our society to this day. The feeling that we are above another has also led to that catastrophe, from the people hurt because of their ethnicity to the genocide of many groups solely because of cultural values and religion. We have brought suffering upon others and have led ourselves to conflict on multiple occasions, and if we do not regulate it, it will cause our downfall. And it is Nemesis a goddess who puts us in our place. Our arrogance and our god complexes can, has, and will cause more catastrophe. And it is Nemesis, the goddess of vengeance and divine retribution, through the voice of Maigo, a young girl who was victim to that god complex, demonstrates this by smiting down the ultimate example. A man who murdered his wife and child and believed himself above judgment, believed himself above vengeance, believed himself above hubris. Hey guys, it's me, Minecraft World. So, this was my One Monstrous Moment Year of the Dragon edition video. This, if you have no idea what this is a collaborative project done by Omni Viewer, who is a Kaiju YouTuber, and every once in a while, to commemorate the release of an upcoming Kaiju movie, he gathers Kaiju fans together and does a collaborative project in a similar vein to Nando V Movie's One Blank Scene project. This year, it was to commemorate Godzilla Kong the New Empire, which and I decided to join in. I've already done this for One Monstrous Moment Star of Ultra Edition, and which was to commemorate the release of Shin Ultraman, but I didn't participate in the one for Gamera Rebirth or the one for Godzilla -1, so I decided, because, well, for Gamera Rebirth, I just didn't really have much interest in doing that, and for -1, I was way too busy. But I decided, may as well throw my hat in the ring, especially since I've been also wanting to talk about the Nemesis saga for a while now in an essay-esque style format. And this felt like a good excuse, especially since I've been doing research for it for my podcast, which I'll get to later. But yeah, the Nemesis saga is genuinely one of my personal favorite kaiju stories in existence, and this was originally going to be the second part for the Star of Ultra Edition, One Monstrous Moment, and I decided against that because tiring, but I decided, no, may as well do it. Especially since there was an alternate universe version released of Project Nemesis, which literally just goes by Nemesis. There's a link to buy it, as well as the rest of the Nemesis saga, the mainline Nemesis saga, down in the description. There's an extended universe, but you don't really need to read that. I haven't, and I plan to, but I haven't, because, well, for one, it's gonna take me a while, but also I am pretty busy, but because I've been reading Nemesis and World War Z by Max Brooks, both of which are really, really good books. But also, I just want to talk about the Nemesis saga in general, and I was able to enjoy it as is without that. This series is legitimately fantastic from start to finish. It's legitimately awesome. But yeah, and as I've been saying for quick updates, as I said, I've had a bit on my plate, because school stuff, personal projects among that. I am going through 2 reading projects at the same time, which, like I said, is Nemesis by Jeremy Robinson, the alternate universe take on Project Nemesis, as well as World War Z by Max Brooks, which is legitimately one of the best books I've ever read. Read it if you haven't. I highly recommend it. If you have read it, yeah, it's great. And yeah, I've been dealing with a lot of school stuff. The Overlord versus Lady Bone Demon versus blog, I will get to. I do plan to finish that. Just, it's gonna take longer than expected, especially considering I have the podcast, which As of recording this, I haven't yet released episode 2, but as of release, episode 2 should be out. Which, episode 2 is Gamera. Episode 3, which is going to be coming in around March, hopefully around the time of this release, it's going to be King Kong. And I will be talking about Nemesis later down the line. Well, she will be one of the initial 5. In fact, if the episode has released before this, then you'll know where she is. So, yeah. But, yeah, that's pretty much all the updates so far. As for fan trailers, like I said, I've been a little bit too busy, and I don't really have, like, many ideas for them at the moment. So yeah. Plus, I want to focus on my school stuff at the moment, so yeah. Hopefully you guys will understand and have patience, but anyways, that's fine. But yeah, that's pretty much everything. Thank you guys for watching. I don't really think I did the best job explaining what I was going for, but I tried. And, hey, gave me an excuse to talk about the Nemesis saga, right? So, yeah. Anyways, take care, guys. Peace!